What is going on, everyone? My name is Boit, and I'm back with some Age of Mythology, the retold action. Yes, it's here. It's time. I'm here with your day one build orders. So I'm going to be showing you here how to approach the Greek early game, how to approach the Egyptian early game, and how to approach the Norse early game. First thing to note here is this build does not just work with Zeus, it also is going to be working with Hades, and it's also going to be working with Poseidon. I will also note this is probably a fairly basic build. It's probably not like hyper efficient or anything, and there's going to be some evolutions over the course of the beta weekend and also the release of Retold is my guess. But this one here is just going to get you jumping straight in and having some success on the ladder day one. So first things first, we're going to drop 4 villagers on food. The granary, if you're going to be noticing, I didn't get anything out of it. There's no hunting dogs. You don't start with the resources for hunting dogs to get it, but more importantly, you actually don't have hunting dogs anymore in that granary. So you don't have to worry about it. We just go straight onto hunt, all good. If you want to be a little bit more advanced, you can probably actually drag these hippopotamus in onto your town center if you get it, but there's also going to be maps where you have deer and things like that that you can also kind of push in to the town center with your villagers shooting them and things like that. So keep that in the back of your mind as to what you can potentially get away with here in cutting things off. But we're just going to go 4 villagers on food, 2 onto gold, 2 onto wood, and basically we're going to also throw down a house with the villager on gold, and we're going to throw down a temple with the villager on gold. Everything else is going to be fairly standard. We're going to go up to 10 villagers onto food just to ensure we get our food to advance to the second age, and we're going to be looking to go for a fairly aggressive classical fight here with the Greeks. You can go for a fast heroic. I'm not sure how good it is with Greeks, but you can also go for a fast second town center. I'm not going to be showing those ones off. Pretty sure all you need to do is just get a healthy amount of villagers on wood and gold as you're advancing to the classical age, and you should be able to afford it. I would assume somewhere in the vicinity of 6 on wood, 6 on gold should be enough for the fast second town center, but this one's going to be for military academy, archery range, Jason, and Heracles, which does bring me to the next point. We no longer have Odysseus in the classical age, so it's not going to be 200 wood for that Odysseus. It's going to actually be 150 gold and 50 food. So a little bit different in terms of the numbers we actually need on our resources for the Greeks to have some sort of clean, fast, advanced time, spamming units out and going killing our opponent. As you can see, once we get 10 villagers onto food, we're actually going to start putting villagers over onto wood, and we're also going to be transferring a handful of villagers around as we advance. As you can see, we're going to bring a couple of villagers over onto wood here, and a couple of villagers over onto gold, and we're going to go through Athena. You can go through Hermes. If you go through Hermes, I would probably recommend going for Centaur. They are really, really strong, though they are a little bit different, it seems, but you can definitely go for Centaur here as well. So we're going to go for 7 on food, 6 on wood, 3 on gold, and you'll notice I grabbed 2 favor here as well. This isn't 100% necessary for Hades, and actually this is 100% necessary for Hades and Poseidon. It's not 100% necessary for Zeus, but this upgrade in the temple, Olympic parentage, I think is a really good technology. It's definitely worth getting out really early. It increases the train time, or reduces the train time, I should say, of your heroes and gives them more HP. Another thing you'll notice here is that the Jason came out of the town center as I was advancing. There's this weird mechanic with the Greek heroes in the town center whereby you can actually train villagers, advance to the next age, get technologies, and train heroes side by side. They've got their own like training queue inside of the town center, which is very, very cool. And you can see we get the Achilles out. Not the Achilles, the Heracles out as well. Villagers coming out. And we also jump onto the chickens. I do want to briefly touch on this. Chickens, they only gather a very short amount slower than hunt. So you can jump onto these chickens and enjoy that and then move out onto onto hunt later, or you can run off to hunt as well and enjoy that as well. So now we're going to jump into the Egyptian build order. The Egyptian build order also works for Ra. It also works for Isis. I'll talk a little bit about the differences as we go through. So the first thing I'm going to show off here is we're actually going to chop down this tree here to kick the game off. What this does is we're going to be looking to get ourselves an early pickaxe because we don't have to get ourselves hunting dogs. We start with 100 wood, so we're already over 70% of the weight, 70% of the weight to getting ourselves pickaxe. So may as well just get the extra little bit of wood and start working towards that is my running theory. Now, another cheeky thing here, and you can see this, is I didn't dump the wood into the town center. Just similar to, I believe, Age of Empires 4, if you don't have to dump the resources into the granary if you're building a building. So say a villager is holding wood and builds a granary, it's going to dump that wood into the granary. You can't dump wood into a completed granary, but you can into a building one. So what we can do here is we can skip a little bit of walking time, build our monument, build our mining camp, and it's going to be working really, really nicely for us. The next thing here is basically we just go for 7 villages onto food, and then we go everyone over onto gold. There is a slight variation here, I think, if you were to be going for a classical fight or if you're going to be going for a fast heroic. As you can see, I built the mining camp, that drops the wood off. I build a house, and this is actually quite a clean opening here for the Egyptians. I think everything seems to come out very, very smoothly and crisply. So what I would say is if you wanted to go for a classical fight or if you wanted to go for a heroic age, I would probably start changing the build order around about after I throw my temple down. So one thing to keep in the back of your mind here is that the temple costs 150 gold. Our gold mine has 3,000 gold in it. So the number we're actually looking for in our gold mine is going to be 2,850. Once the gold mine gets below that, you can force drop your villagers because they're going to be holding quite a bit. You've got pickaxe, so they've got 15 carry capacity now. So they're going to be holding quite a bit of resources in them. So you're going to want to have to force drop those villagers in order to build that temple up for a nice clean 430 advance time. 430 is probably a little bit slower than what the other civilizations are doing, and there is probably a world in which we can probably get ourselves a 4-minute advance or a 4:15 advance with some other slight variations here as we're going to throw that temple up, and so long as it starts by 240 you can get yourself that that classical age nice and cleanly here. Alright, so if I was to be going for something that's not a fast second town center at this point, I would probably be looking into getting myself a little bit more onto the wood at this point, because we want to probably build ourselves some slingers if we're going for a classic fight. If we're going for a fast heroic, probably looking to actually get ourselves more food at this point, because 5-ish villages on gold with pickaxe is going to be more than enough to get ourselves 500 gold in by the time we need to click up to the heroic age. So any more than that is a little bit overkill. So we're just going to be needing to get 800 food. So that's kind of the variations there in terms of in whatever strategy you want to be going for. So, right. We're going to be going up probably through Tar here. Doesn't really matter at this point. I'm fairly sure all of the Egyptian minor gods are really, really strong. Bast. Basically, if you go Bast, you're looking to be utilizing myth units quite a bit, using that Eclipse and hitting some sort of a timing attack. If you go through Anubis, you're going to be looking to utilize that Anubite and maybe even some of the unique upgrades that comes with Anubis. If you're going to be going through Dart, you're going to be looking to utilize that Shifting Sands to get some advantages over your opponent with some sneak attacks and things like that, as well as also having that Shadoof to get yourself those farms up for nice and cheap. But yeah, apart from that, I'm not really sure which one's going to be the best. If I had to put my money on some stuff, probably going to be your Anubis and Tar are still going to be very, very strong. Actually, Bar's also going to be very, very strong as well. I've got no idea. Just pick whichever one you want and try out the different styles where that's concerned. All right, so probably could have sent the villagers a little bit earlier over to this town center. You can actually see I'm sitting 591 gold. It's a little bit too much, and I'm a little bit far away from the town center. But the town center comes down perfectly at 430 here. As I said, your opponent is probably going to be advancing a little bit quicker than you, so they might be able to deny this. So what I would tell you to do is probably bring your priest back, bring all your animals of set back, bring all your animals out of your temple and your Wadjet over onto that position to defend your town center as you build it up, and you're going to have a good game. All right, we're going to jump into the Odin build order here. Odin is very, very different to on the Titans because we no longer can build ourselves ox carts from the town center. Instead, we're building ox carts from our villagers and our dwarves. So our villagers and dwarves can build our ox carts now. What does this mean? Basically means sharing ox carts, not that big of an advantage. And if you don't really want a dwarf building ox carts if you can help it, right? So, but basically because the dwarves gather a little bit faster. So what we're going to do here is we're going to drop 3 villagers onto the gazelles here. We're going to come over onto the mining camp, onto the gold mine, and we're going to start mining some gold. We're also going to jump over onto our trees here as well and make things work where that's concerned. So we're going to get ourselves 3 food, 2 gold, 2 wood, and then after this, there's this really, really cool trick you can do, which is basically you can auto queue gatherers and dwarves one after each other. So this is going to push those dwarves out only if you've got the gold to build them. It's really, really cool how that works. If you don't have the resources to build that villager, it's gonna pick the other villager to build. So very, very cool as we're gonna get all the things out. But the most important thing here is that we will have the resources to do this anyways. So this is just going to be ensuring that we don't forget to get our dwarves out. And so it's going to be quite a simple way to go in the Archaic age here. So going to get our house down. Now, the next thing to keep in the back of your mind is, are you going for a faster advance? Are you going for a slower advance? If you're going for a faster advance, probably want only 3 dwarves on gold. After that, you want to throw a temple up. If you go for a slower advance, you can actually go for 4 dwarves on gold. So I'm going to show the slower advance here. This gets you a little bit more resources, and because I'm on the map watering hole here, I can actually wall in my base really easily. It's probably better to go for a slower advance and kind of catch your opponent off guard who's going for a faster advance, trying to put pressure onto you. So we're going to go for another dwarf here, but yeah, you don't need to. You can see I've got the resources had I built a gatherer here to get a temple up, and I would have had the temple nice and fast, and the food would have skyrocketed up to 400 by putting those extra gatherers onto food a little bit earlier, and I could have got that 4th dwarf a little bit later. So we're just waiting for that temple. As soon as we get the resources in, it's going to be temple time, and there we go. And then we're just going to get villagers out and potentially also one final dwarf here. So we're looking for roughly 6 or 7 villagers on food. We're looking for roughly 4 or 5 villagers on gold. And we're looking for roughly 4 or 5 villagers on wood as your general gauge for like where you're going. Now, Norse is generally known for being fairly good in the classical age and being fairly weak in terms of being able to defend themselves. So you don't want to really be on the defensive with Norse. Now, you can go for fast second town centers with Norse. Don't get me wrong. There is going to be some situations where you might want to be doing that. But I think you're going to be wanting to drop yourself a variation of either 2 Great Halls, which is the new Norse building, which is where you're going to be able to build your raiding cavalry from, or a Great Hall and a Longhouse, or 2 Longhouses. So those are your variations on kind of the opener, so to speak. There is also the option of going for a fast heroic with Norse as well. A little bit cheesy. As I said, it's really hard to defend yourself against kind of anything coming your way. So you've got to kind of get a read on what your opponent's doing before you even decide to go for the heroic age here with Norse. Otherwise, you're just going to get punished by an aggressive attack. So what I'm going to show here is the Great Hall Longhouse. If you're playing as Loki, you might want to go for Longhouse and make yourself Herser, throw an Axeman, and make that work there. Or you could also go for Great Hall Longhouse and go for Herser throwing Axeman. Or here with or you can also go for Great Hall and go for raiding cavalry, and see if you can make that work. So those are your kind of options, so to speak, as we get both of our buildings down, and that's kind of the build. And yeah, like I said, probably not going to be wanting to go for fast second town center very often. Probably not going to be wanting to go for a fast stroke very often. So this is probably your opening most games, though that might be very, very wrong, and there might be a whole bunch of other stuff. But anyways, we're going to jump into Thor here. So, with Thor, The big difference is that we start with only dwarves. We start with 3 dwarves, but those dwarves gather at the same rate as our gatherers do. Pretty much. Like, it's a very minuscule amount of difference over the course of the game. It's not going to amount to very much difference, so I wouldn't worry about it too much, is my current running theory. The big thing you need to do here is split at the start of the game. You want to have 2 on food, 2 dwarves on food, 1 dwarf goes to the gold. After that, we're going to be putting our villagers up to 5 onto food. Following that, we need to put 2 villagers onto wood, and we're going to be going from there. So, I guess similar to what with Odin, the dwarves building ox carts is a little bit like, you don't really want dwarves building ox carts, but you don't really have a choice at the very start, so you kind of have to. And beyond that, building ox carts for your wood line doesn't really matter if you skip it, don't skip it, because it's not slowing your villager production down. You're not actually losing any resources by building an ox cart outside of the actual cost of the ox cart. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're trying to even improve on these sorts of build orders, and everything's going to be good. You still need to get yourself out a house. You still need to get yourself out a temple. The reason I put this dwarf onto gold at the very start is because I want to get myself 4 dwarves, or an extra dwarf, onto gold and a temple. So I need to get myself up from that starting gold up to, you have that 150 gold for the temple and an extra 60 gold for the dwarf. So 210 gold in the Archaic Age and all that stuff. So the very last villager I'm going to get here is going to be the dwarf. So basically it's the template in the back of your mind to keep in mind is 1 on gold, 2 on wood, and the rest on food until we get our temple up. That's going to get us 400 food just in the nick of time to advance. And it's going to be a very, very good way to start the game here with Thor. I will say that it seems like with Thor's unique bonus right now, he gets dwarves out of his dwarven armory. You can also build the dwarven armory in the Archaic Age. So there is going to be a really, really nice build, most likely, that works with that dwarven armory. So definitely check that one out. If you can manage to get yourself a decent advance time and get that dwarven armory down, it's going to be really, really good for you. So one thing to keep in the back of your mind here is you want to share, not necessarily share, but you want your wood line to be close to your food line. If your gold mine is nice and close to your food line as well, that's also going to be really, really good. But most importantly, wood line close to food line. That way we can easily switch the villages around and reduce walking time with them while going to the classical age. You can see we're coming here now. And then when we click up to the classical age, we're going to move our dwarves over to the gold. And we're going to move 2 villages from food over to wood. And this is going to net us enough resources to build Herser, get our houses down, throw down a great hall, and then throw down a longhouse afterwards. You can also do things like double great halls here. You can also do things like double longhouses here if you really want to. There's a lot of options to start off here. And also you could go for fast second town centers or a fast heroic, though I really don't think Thor has got much in the way of that fast heroic, having only access to Bragi and Skadi. So you'd want to probably go for a classical sort of defensive playstyle here, raiding playstyle here with Thor, just kind of like on the Titans. Another thing here is, yeah, you could jump onto the chickens, but it's probably better to just be defending your hunt here with Thor and saving those chickens for later if you get pushed off that. So jumping into this, or trying to build buildings around our hunt to defend ourselves. The Valkyrie can go off and raid here. It's really, really strong early, it seems. And yeah, get yourself the longhouse, get yourself the great hall, build yourself some units out. Throw an axeman, raiding cavalry is really, really good, I assume. Mass raiding cavalry is really good. Raiding cavalry, Ulfsark could be really good as well if your opponent's going for like I don't know, a cavalry archer based army, could be really good. And that's going to be the one. If you guys enjoyed this, please consider the follow on the Twitch, on the YouTube, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next game.